Hi, today we're going to look at project profitability, one of the key metrics for me to look at periodically, but I'm still surprised to hear that so many project managers or COOs don't measure the productivity of their projects, don't look at these metrics. So why it's important? Basically to know where you are with your projects, how much money you're making, and in case of fixed fee projects, for example, if you're making any money at all. Sometimes you may have underestimated the project and not make any profit whatsoever, actually losing money. Secondly, in sales or marketing, you will very often be asked what your ideal clients are. And project profitability is one metric that helps you answer that question. So you can compare projects and clients between themselves and see where the profitability is highest, meaning where it's good for you to focus your efforts or what types of clients to look for in the future. So I've put together a simple spreadsheet that you can use to measure the profitability of your projects. So I'm going to share my screen now. Let's have a look at it. So first thing to notice is that we've got a timeline for the year here, going from January until December 2020. And we've got the first project, which will be our example. Let's look at the individual rows. First one is billable hours. So what I do here is I export the total number of billable hours worked by my team on the project in a given month, and I export that from my time tracking software. I can also make a note of non-billable hours. For example, in our case, these would be the hours spent on things like account management or admin around the project. And the next row is the revenue. It's actually quite complicated to get to this number as there is like many manual steps involved. So first, we need to know who worked on the project. Then we need to look at these individual team members, have their billable hours, their billable rates, multiply them. So for example, developer A worked 200 hours at $80, so I would multiply that and I would repeat this procedure for everyone within my team. So the number of billable hours in a given month times their billable rate, which may be different. And that gives me the total that I should bill the client for. So I issue an invoice, I obviously confirm the timesheets, issue the invoice. And once I've got my invoice, I've got the number that basically states revenue. So I then exchange this to one common currency. In our case, it's Polish zloty, but you may use dollars, pounds, or euros, or any other currency, to be honest. And that's my revenue based on the actual invoiced amount. I then have the cost of labor. So I follow a similar procedure, meaning that I look at individual team members and I look at how many hours they've spent on the project in a given month. Instead of billable rate, I use a cost rate, meaning the rate that indicates how much I need to pay these specialists. So I take a salary and I divide it by the number of work hours in a given month to get the average hourly cost of a specialist, and then I multiply the number of hours times this cost rate to get something that I call cost of labor. Having my revenue and cost of labor in place helps me calculate the gross profit. I just subtract cost of labor from revenue and I know how much money I've made the gross profit on the project in a given month. It's important to notice that gross profit is not the final metric. We're just taking into account, billable rates and the cost rates, nothing else. So that's like the very first profit we look at, but it's a very meaningful metric at this moment already. So for the purpose of operations, it's enough for me. If I wanted to look at more detailed financials, I would need to create a more comprehensive document that would include all the other costs, such as like the overhead, marketing, office, etc. But that's not really of our interest. That's more for the CFO or accountant. So here we've got the gross profit that we make on the project. The margin is nothing else, it's just the profit expressed in percentages. What's interesting is that we can calculate many more interesting metrics, for example, the average hourly rate. And to get to this metric, I take the revenue and I divide the revenue by the total number of hours spent on the project, both billable and unbillable to get to know what's the real value of the hourly rate in a given month. We've also got here the yearly totals, so our performance from the beginning of the year up to this point, and some averages as well. So that helps us, for example, compare projects between themselves as mentioned previously. So how much profit we've made on this one versus this one, and what's the margin looking like. We can see that here it's very similar. So we follow the step every month. After the end of the month, we need to probably wait 5 to sometimes 7-10 days until all the timesheets are accepted, signed off. So it's actually a bit of time before we can see what our performance was like in the past month. So the tediousness and the work involved in the process was one of our pains, and hence the idea of weekly. So we're actually now building a software that will give us these numbers automatically in an automated manner. So first, we won't have to rewrite all of this information from many various sources, such as like time tracking tool or some other Excel spreadsheets. Second, all of these calculations will be done automatically. So the multiplication of billable or cost rates times the number of hours spent working on the project, the number of work hours in a given month, it's all going to be calculated automatically. These statistics will be available instantaneously in real time, so we won't need to wait for our admin assistant to help us gather all of this information. We basically won't have to wait 5 or 10 days until we get these metrics. This is something that's going to be gathered on an ongoing basis and will be available to us at any given point. Okay, so this spreadsheet should be a good starting point. It gets more messy when you've got a lot of projects and actually a few year history. So that's another pain point we've experienced that pushed us towards weekly. Hope you found this video helpful. I'm going to make this spreadsheet available for you to view and copy for your own purposes if you want to start using that. And if you're interested in getting something slightly more sophisticated, then I encourage you to sign up to the waitlist on weeklyapp.com, and that way you can get notified where we launch our super tool that will help you automate and save time on tasks such as this one. Thanks for watching. See you next time.